والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. Thank you very much for inviting us. I'm your brother Shabib, and this is my, I say brother, I don't say my son because I'm still young. I'm still 25, so okay. This is Ayman. So inshallah tonight we'll share with you some of the scientific miracles mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago, more than 1400 years ago, and scientists just came to know some of these scientific facts, to know, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to show us that this is the truth. Al-Quran al-Kareem is the truth. So we'll start inshallah. Next, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The majority of the audience here is a Muslim audience. The next slide is usually for those who are not Muslim. They need to know the terminology. Simple words like words that we repeat in the slide, like the name of Prophet, who he was, Allah, his God, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, bismillah. So just a few of the definitions that you know, I believe all of you know of these, but just take a second to refresh, inshallah. And before we even begin with any of the actual miracles that are found in the Quran, we just want to go ahead, next slide. We just want to go over some basic rules that the scholars that Ayman have put for us. Rules on what the Quran is, essential facts that we need to know before we even dive into the science aspect of the Quran. Starting out with the Quran being the book of divine guidance for all humanity forever. So we'll go on to some of the other points where it's everlasting. It's meant to last through all times. It's meant to work with people from all different tongues and nationalities and languages in all different places and parts of the world.
So the Quran is a book of science. As people, they think that it's a book of science, like you find, anatomy, physiology, and all this stuff. But it's not. It's not a book of science, but it's a book of science, mu'jizat, miracles, ayat, and we'll see from the examples, inshallah.
Third fact is that no one can produce a book similar to the Holy Quran. So no book can ever come close to any of this, especially anything of the creation from any of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot create or produce any book similar to this, even with one chapter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even goes ahead and dares the disbelievers in the Quran to even come up with something as small as a chapter. And obviously no one can come to anything close to it.
The Quran is the everlasting or the ultimate and renewable miracle, subhanAllah. Sometimes you read one ayah and you understand from that ayah something. Next day you read the same ayah, you understand something else from the same ayah. And you see the scholars, when they studied the Quran, they found something amazing. And that's why we have lots of books of tafsir. And you will find that some of the scholars, they are, focusing in the linguistic aspect of the verses or the ayat, and others they will talk about the miracles. Others will talk about the language. Others they will find something from the same ayah on different aspects. Subhanallah, and that's why the Quran is the renewable miracle that you always you find something in the same thing. As the knowledge of people advances, the more knowledge people they will have.
Next fact is that it contains almost every kind of example. So the Quran holds types of stories or verses or advices from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can help us in every type of walk of life, subhanAllah.
And the Quran needs contemplation, reflection, pondering. You don't just read the ayah and just pass by. You want to finish your hizb and you want to finish the whole Quran in 1 month or so, and without stopping at each ayah to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you through this ayah.
And lastly, we'll mention this over and over again, inshallah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was an illiterate man. كان نبيا أمي. He did not speak, he did not write or read in Arabic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the wisdoms of that is that He took it away from him so people cannot say that he actually wrote the Quran or came up with the writing and so on and so forth. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we'll mention that going on because people over the time have accused the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam of coming up with these ideas, these scientific ideas. And first and foremost, we need to understand that he was not even able to write or read.
So, the relationship between Islam and science is very, very strong relationship. As you can see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, revealed this book, His divine guidance to us, to guide us through this life. And one of the things that we will have, and we have to accomplish, is to be strong in science. And as we can see that Islam and knowledge itself in Islam is a way that leads people to increase their faith, their iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
The next point is that Islam is in total harmony and agreement with proven scientific facts, subhanAllah. So I don't know if it's the only religion, but it's very close to being the only religion that actually does not have any contradictions with what is up to date in terms of science.
Also, Islam encourages science and contemplation of the universe. Numerous ayat, verses in the Quran encourages us to, basically to look in the sky, to look at our creation, to look at the plants, to look at the water, to look at things around us. And this, strengthen the relationship between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next. Okay. Go ahead.
So we'll start with the mountains, inshallah. So when you all take a look at this picture here, what do you see? If someone just showed you this picture and they asked you to describe the picture that you see or what's in this picture, how would you describe it? Open discussion, inshallah.
What do you see? What do you see here? What is this?
A mountain.
Mountain.
It's a mountain.
Okay. If we ask anyone to define a mountain, what are you going to say? You help us. How do you define a mountain? What is a mountain?
Big piece of rock.
Huh?
Big piece of rock.
Big piece of rock. Okay.
That's always the first guess.
Okay. What else? Anything more specific? Huh? رواسي. لا خليه ما تغششناش بالعين. Wait. So we see. Go ahead.
It's tall. So
it's tall.
Something that's higher than the elevation of the earth or higher than whatever the ground and the sea is. So if you actually look at the encyclopedias and the dictionaries and so on and so forth, you'll find these descriptions. They say in the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says that a mountain is an area of land that is relatively much higher than the land surrounding it. And in the Americana one, we just like to word it differently. We said that a mountain is a portion of the Earth's surface that rises above the surrounding region.
Okay, so it's just simple, straightforward, as you say, big rock above the surface. Does it mention anything about what is exactly a mountain? What is underneath the mountain? What is the function of the mountain? There's nothing such there. Let's see what scientists found.
So in the later half of the 19th century, it was discovered that mountains actually had roots that went under the surface of the ground. And it sometimes reached 5 to 15 times the mass that we see outside. So the part of the mountain that we see with our naked eyes, the root of that mountain underneath the surface of the earth reaches 5 to 15 times as much as what we see, subhanAllah. And they even resemble it as pegs, pickets, or stakes. And in the later 1960s, scientists have come to know that mountains play a very crucial and important role in stabilizing the Earth's crust.
So let's look at some pictures. Go ahead, Omar. So this is the mountain that we see. Okay? And this is the root of the mountain. These are the mountains in Europe, the Alps, the highest mountains in Europe. See, that's the elevation that we see, and that's the root of that mountain. So you can see that these mountains, they have roots deep in the ground, you know, inside the earth to hold and to stabilize the structure or the crust of the earth. Next.
Just more diagrams basically illustrating what we see and what the actual root is of the entire mountain chain.
So this is the visible, part of the mountain, but this is the ones that we cannot see. And what they did, they took pictures with what they call it holography. So they can picture the whole mountain and gives you the picture of the mountain until the deepest part of it. And it showed exactly what we are talking about. That the mountains, as we see, they're not just the above the surface of the earth, but they extend inside the earth, in fact.
But going back, we could go back. It's okay if we can't go back. There it is. So basically, some of the scientific books, they even resemble it to icebergs, whereas the upper portion, what we see on top of the surface of the water, is the minority, or the smallest part of the actual object, and then the majority of it is below the surface of the water.
Okay, next. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran more than 1400 years ago.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. He says, have we not made the earth as a bed and the mountains as pegs?
So who told Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that these mountains that you see, they don't look the way that you define it, but you have to look also inside it. They look like a watad. Watad, the state. You know, if you talk to a Bedouins in the desert, and you tell them, the stake that you use for your tent to hold the rope, of the tents to keep it stable, they will tell you, the watad or that stake, part of it will be above the surface and most of it will be inside the ground to hold that. And when you want to give description of how the mountains look like, they look like this, like a stake. SubhanAllah. Who told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this scientific fact? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لكن الله يشهد بما أنزل إليك أنزله بعلمه. Allah bears witness that what He has revealed unto you was revealed through His knowledge, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was not the knowledge of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It was the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in another surah, Surah Al-Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 15, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون. And He has set firm mountains as anchors, as anchors in the earth, so that it would not shake with you. So in this verse, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually talks, the first verse He talked about the structure and the way the mountain looks. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the actual function of the mountain, stabilizing the earth's crust.
Have you been to a harbor, a port, seaport, and you see how the ship, they throw the anchors to hold the ship so it won't go away from the harbor? The same thing, that's the function of these mountains. They act like the harbors, and like the anchors that hold the ships from going. It's the same. It holds or stabilizes the crust of the earth. Next. Okay. Wait. No, Ayman, go ahead.
So we'll move on,
Let's keep
inshallah.
swimming. Let's keep swimming. Let's keep swimming. And this is Dory. Have you watched Nemo? Finding Nemo, the movie. By the way, that was scientific, based on scientific facts. And actually, one of the advisors was Professor Jack Fresco. He is one of the marine scientists. You know, he's well known. You know, and he gave him some of the scientific facts. So we'll look into that. Yeah, go ahead.
So again, the same question we're going to throw out there. When you look at this picture, how can you describe it?
So if you're sitting by the sea and you see something there, would you imagine that there are bodies of water in that water that you see? It's not only one body of water. Would you imagine, or you say, oh, this is water, just water, ocean, sea, okay? Did you get the point? So if you see, what you see, it's only one body of water. Is that true? You won't say, oh, no, I see different bodies of water. So let's see.
So there were tests that were being held to test the water, to basically test everything within its components, its pH, its salinity, its density, the microorganisms that live there, the habitats and the plants that live in those waters, and so on and so forth. So they had ships like this that had, you know, fully equipped labs. This was, what was it called? Matsushima?
Yeah.
Matsushima. It's a Japanese ship. It's fully equipped, and subhanAllah, they took these out to the sea to test the water. We can go to the next slide. There's an actual map that will show you where they started. They started in the Mediterranean Sea. And they started collecting samples and again testing for all those variables that we were talking about. And as they moved west towards the Atlantic Ocean, they got to this area called Jabal Bara, Gibraltar Sill. And at that sill, that's where the coast of Morocco meets the coast of Spain. And when they collected samples from there, they realized that everything about that water was different from the samples that they collected in the Mediterranean Sea. You know, its pH, its density, its salinity, all the animals that live there, it's completely different, subhanAllah. Even the temperature. So they moved even more west into the Atlantic Ocean, and they took samples from there. And amazingly, everything there was different from the Gibraltar Sill, different from the Mediterranean Sea. So they said, you know, maybe there's some type of mistake. They recalibrated all of their items, went back, started, did the same thing again, but yet the same phenomenon happened.
So then they took the ship. They said, maybe this is only a, you know, phenomenon that's particular for this, you know, thing. And what they did basically, they took the ship and put it in a horizontal position. And they took a sample of water from the Mediterranean Sea and a sample of water from the area underneath the boat, and the sample of water from the Atlantic Ocean. And they found something amazing. They found that these three samples, they look different. You would, you know, think, you know, because the Atlantic Ocean is a huge ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea is a small, you know, body of water. So the characteristics, the features of the Atlantic Ocean will dominate the features of the Mediterranean Sea, but that's not the case. Each body of water kept its own features, subhanAllah. So they moved to this area here, the Red Sea,
and they basically thought that it was just a phenomenon that happened to that part of the world. So they decided to test it here. So they took samples from the Red Sea, samples from Bab al-Mandab, where Djibouti and Yemen basically come together, almost come together, and then basically from the Indian Ocean. And they found that all three samples, again, were different, subhanAllah.
At the same time, they were experimenting those bodies of water, and from University of Qatar, they did also the same test to check the Gulf area with Gulf of Oman, and they found the same phenomenon. So they were surprised, and they were happy to see this phenomenon going on everywhere.
So they came to the conclusion that wherever two different seas met, there was a barrier between them, which divided them so that each sea had its own temperature, salinity, density, despite large waves, strong currents, or tides.
You can see here the Mediterranean Sea water goes in and is trying to change its characteristics, but it cannot do it. And this is the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Gibraltar Sill here. So things are keeping their own features. They don't transgress. They don't change the features of the others. You have to change yourself into the features of the other to get mixed with the others. Otherwise, there is a barrier.
One thing to keep in mind is that the Prophet ﷺ never sailed on a ship. In fact, some reports even say that he's never seen the sea himself. But what we do know is that he's never sailed on a ship, so there's no way, subhanAllah, he could have tested this even if he didn't even have the technology to do this, but there's no way he even had access to it. So this is what they came up with. They went to space and they took pictures of the Earth, thermal images of the Earth. And they realized that temperature is a very important physical parameter in the marine environment. It limits the distribution and ranges of ocean life by affecting the density, salinity, the concentration of dissolved gases in the oceans, as well as influencing the metabolic rates and reproductive cycles of marine organisms. So just temperature by itself affected everything, subhanAllah. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see an entire satellite image of the Earth. And you'll see the different colors of the different bodies of water.
So you can see here, this is a body of water. This is the whole, what they call it, which ocean is it? Pacific. Okay? I forgot I'm just a doctor, okay? So sorry. Here's the, so you have a body of water here, different color, subhanAllah. And there is a body of water here, different color. So you have bodies of water in one ocean, subhanAllah. You can see here the Atlantic Ocean. Is this the Atlantic Ocean? He has his project is on to draw a map. So I'm testing him, okay? So here's the one body of water, another one here, the different color. So by just checking the temperature in different areas, they came to the conclusions that there are barriers that do not allow these bodies of water to mix. Subhanallah. Got the point? Is it clear? Okay, let's go next.
Let's see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. It says in Surah Al-Rahman, chapter number 55, verse number 19, مَرْجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. He is Allah who has let free the two seas meeting together. Between them is a barrier by which none of them can transgress. Then which of the blessings of your Lord will you both jinn and men deny?
SubhanAllah. And see, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُمَا اللُّؤْلُؤُ وَالْمَرْجَانِ. It is out of them, both come pearls and coral. Why coral? They found that coral does not grow in the sweet water, only grows into the saltish water. So the ayah here is talking about two saltish water. We're not talking about the river that meets with the sea or with the ocean. We're talking about two bodies of water that have the same characteristics. They look like the same. They are saltish. Okay? Miyahun milha. Okay? So next ayah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Naml, chapter 27, verse 61, أَمَّنْ جَعَلَ الْأَرْضَ قَرَارًا وَجَعَلَ خِلَالَهَا أَنْهَارًا وَجَعَلَ لَهَا رَوَاسِيَ وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ حَاجِزًا أَإِلَهٌ مَعَ اللَّهِ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Is not He, Allah, who has made the earth as a fixed abode and placed rivers in its midst, and has placed firm mountains therein, and has set a barrier between the two seas. Is there any God but Allah? Nay, but most of them know not.
SubhanAllah. Who told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam this scientific fact? Brothers and sisters, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never sailed on a ship, and in some narrations, never been to the ocean, never seen an ocean or a sea. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet, all this knowledge mentioned in the Quran, even the mufassirin, the interpreters of the Quran, for a long time they were confused with how come bodies of water, they go together, they mix, but they don't mix. You know, they don't change the characteristics. And now, with all the measures, with all the knowledge that we have, we know why they don't mix. Because of that barrier that prevent them. In order for them to mix, they have to change their characteristics. And subhanAllah, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned more than 1400 years ago to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? قل أنزله الذي يعلم السر في السماوات والأرض إنه كان غفورا رحيما. Say, Ayman.
Say, it is this Quran, that this Quran has been sent down by Him, by Allah, who knows the secrets of the heavens and the earth.
وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى.
Your companion Muhammad ﷺ has neither gone astray nor has he erred, nor does he speak of his own desire. It is only an inspiration that is inspired, a revelation that is revealed.
Subhanallah. Say Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Allah. Say Subhanallah again. One day, I was with a friend who is a specialist in soil science. So he is a specialist. So I asked him, can you tell me something, some information from your expertise that I don't ask anyone else about it? He said, what we found, the clay soil, when we put water on it, it does something amazing. And he showed me the pictures. 3 stages happen to the water when you put water on it. You see people, when you go, is there anyone who's an architect here? Architect? Osama? When you build is that the word? First you spray some water on that place to make sure that that place is strong enough to hold the structure, that it's not going to be a clay soil or something that will change. This is the idea. When you put what they found, when you put the water on the dust, on the soil, this is what happens. He told me 3 stages. Ayman.
3 things happen. So the first stage is the vibration stage, where when you drop the water onto the actual soil, it results in the propelling of the charged soil particles. So you'll have the positive and the negative particles repelling each other and going to the opposite directions. Step number...
Yeah, just one thing. What they found from the analysis, that each particle of the soil has either a negative or a positive charge. And when you put the water, this is what's going to happen. The first stage, there will be what they call it the vibration stage. And he showed me how the movement of these, of these particles happen. Then the second stage
is the swelling stage. So what happens is the soil particles begin, because of the water, it begins to increase in size and it begins basically to swell. And then the third stage is the germination or growth stage, where the plant germ actually grows under the soil and then erects itself.
So he was telling me these 3 stages, and subhanallah, I said, subhanallah, what you are telling me, I read it in one of the ayah in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it. Let's see. He said vibration stage, which means in Arabic ihtizaz. Ihtizaz. Ihtizaz means vibration. And the swelling stage, it means rubu. Rubu. Yakbur al-hajm. It becomes bigger in size. And the growth, imbat, germination stage, that the plant will come out. And I said, Subhanallah, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, chapter number 22, verse number 5, وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ هَامِدَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ وَأَنْبَتَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ زَوْجٍ بَهِيجٍ. And you see the earth still and calm. We said before you even place water, nothing's going on in the soil. But when we send down water thereon, it vibrates, اهتزت, swells, rabat, and anbatat, produces every kind of beautiful growth in pairs.
SubhanAllah, what they found, that these particles, they are in a stationary status. They don't move. The only time they start propelling and moving and shaking is when you put water on that soil, subhanAllah, and it starts shaking. And that's what happens. When they start shaking, they absorb the water and they become swollen, and then cracks will happen in that, soil, and the plant will come out of it. Who told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I was telling my brother, and I said, you may say this is by chance, coincidence. Look at this, another ayah in the Quran.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Fussilat, chapter 41, verse 39, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنَّكَ تَرَى الْأَرْضَ خَاشِعَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ إِنَّ الَّذِي أَحْيَاهَا لَمُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى إِنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this example as a sign to teach us a lesson. He says, and of his signs is that you see the earth lowly and settled. It has khashia, it has khushu'. Similar to when you're in salah, you are lowly, you're settled, you're humbling yourself. So the earth is lowly and settled. But when we send down thereon water, it vibrates and swells. Truly he who gives life to the dead earth can surely give life to men who are dead, for he has power over all things.
SubhanAllah, he told me, this is exactly what they are teaching us. This is exactly what we learned from the book, and he showed me the pictures, the ultrasound, and how they mentioned this, and these 3 stages. SubhanAllah, who told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Did he have the equipment to study the soil? Did he have the microscope, the telescope, any scope to check? And did he have enough time to do this? Or he was busy with the da'wah to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept it for us, for time to come, that these things will show up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ. Soon we will show them. You will see it. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves, until it will be clear to them that this is, the Quran is the truth. And here's the time comes. لِكُلِّ نَبَأٍ مُسْتَقَرٍ وَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. For everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, there will be a time that this thing will be seen. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about Al-Jannah, about Al-Nar, about the hellfire, about the punishment, about the grave, everything will be seen. We don't see it now, but it will come a time that we'll see that. And these are just examples to show you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill His promise as He told His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam through the Quran. Next, please.
Okay. Moving on to space. We're leaving this earth, inshallah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before we begin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ are always pushing us, like my father said earlier, to think and ponder. My older brother said earlier that we should be thinking and pondering over the skies and the change in the night and day and so on and so forth, like the verses that he read in Salat al-Isha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Qaf, chapter number 50, verse number 6, أَفَلَمْ يَنْظُرُوا إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَوْقَهُمْ كَيْفَ بَنَيْنَاهَا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا وَمَا لَهَا مِنْ فُرُوجٍ. Do they not look at the sky above them, how we have made it and how we have adorned it and designed it basically, and there are no rifts or flaws in it.
SubhanAllah. These are the, observatory to look in the sky. Unfortunately, Muslims who started this, who started to look because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pushing them to look. Look, keep looking in the sky. Look at everything around you. Everything tells you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does exist, that Allah controls everything. See? That leads you to the Iman, the faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.